Today we're looking at Maya 2014, and I'm going to show you how to make an artificial environment like a landscape, which we can put other objects in, maybe for medium distance shots. It's quite a cheap effect, but it's got some key learning in it for you. Let me just close this down because you don't need that at the moment. So what I've got here is the polygon menu set up, and nothing else is created at the moment. So first of all, we'll create a sphere. Now this sphere I'm going to draw quite small, but then I'm going to manipulate the history of the object to turn it into the object exactly as I want it. So I'm going to select these, translate Z, X and Y, and I'm going to 0 that using 0 and enter. So that centers it on the scene, and then in the polygon sphere inputs, this is when it was first made. This was made with it. If you duplicate objects, you'll find that this input is missing. But yeah, when it's first made, you can see I can rename it there, but I can change the radius here. So I want this radius, actually I'm going to make this massive. I'm going to make it 50. Okay, so I'm going to make a really big sphere. I can zoom right out on it so I can see what's going on there. So really big sphere, because I know that a lot of the objects that I've made so far are kind of scaled in size to this this grid here. So I know that it's going to be bigger than some of the objects that I've made, so it should be about the right size for me. Now what I want to do first of all is I'm going to use, so that was 6 to make it on shaded view. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a new layer, create an empty layer, and I'm going to add that object to it. So right click and add selected objects. Okay, so now that I know that my object is on a layer and can be turned invisible, I'm going to switch that off, and I'm going to draw a plane. Now this plane has only got one division at the moment, so it's a really large plane. It's only got one division. I'm going to centralize that in the scene, just as I did before. 0, press enter, go to polyplane, and here I'm going to make this this size here, I'm going to make that 100. And you should see that when I switch on the visibility of the dome, as if by magic, it comes just outside the edges of my dome. Okay, and to give you an idea of what we're aiming at here, I'm just going to zoom in. So here we go, zoom in and just scroll down, and you can see that what we've done there is we've created almost like a sky and a land. Now what I want to do is I want to start dividing this land, but at the moment there are no divisions in the middle for me to manipulate. So if I switch that off for a second, if I wanted to bend this or deform it, it's not going to happen. It can't happen, because you can only generate deformations when there are vertex, and you can see there's only 4 vertex on this plane, 1 at each corner. So what I need to do is, in object mode, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to polyplane history, and I'm going to change this subdivisions here. Now a little trick, if you're not sure how many subdivisions you want, you can actually click on the word itself and middle click, drag left and right in the scene area, and that will allow you to interactively change the number associated with that word. So that's 15, I reckon 25 is probably about right. Now normally you try and avoid making objects complex in this way, because normally you will be adding deformation points, vertex, that you don't really need. We try and keep the number of vertex to a minimum as long as possible, so the computer can find it easier to cope with the animation and motion that might be involved in later in the process. But for this particular purpose, we're just going to generate a nice cross-section of divisions that we can play around with. So switching that on, I've still got my dome there, it's still in the right place, so we're all ready to go. Now there's only one tool we're really going to use today, but it's quite a complex one. This is called the Sculpt Geomatry tool. If you go up to Mesh, go down to Sculpt Geomatry tool, you can go to the options and it will pop open the option box as well. This is what you saw open at the beginning, and we're going to have a look at this. Now I've reset the tool so it's back to its defaults, and I'm ready. I can start actually painting onto this surface. Let's just go from the top. So the basic things here is radius U is the size of your brush. That can be slid up here, or if you want to do it interactively in the scene, if you press B on the keyboard and drag sideways, you can increase and decrease the size of the brush in that way, and you can see that when you let go, that increases over here. So that's quite a good size brush for us to start with. We've got different profiles of the brush, so we can change those if we need to, and these are the kinds of operations that the brush will do. So we can push it in, let's just scroll down so we can see that. So we can push it in, we can pull it out, we can smooth it over, If we don't like what we've done, or we need it to be smoother, we can spread apart vertex that are under the brush. We can pinch together vertex. Let me just increase it. Oh, yeah. Let's just increase that a little bit so that we can see that happening a little bit. There we go. So we can pull them together. We can slide sideways, so we can pull them about sideways, and we can also erase the work we've done if we don't like the deformations we've put in place. Underneath that, you've got the reference vector. Now, we've been using normals. Normals tend to be at 90 degrees to the face. So when you say you're using normals, it normally means that you're going to put it at 90 degrees to where it is at the moment. So you've got normal, first normal, the viewpoint, so that means you can push it around. So if I'm pulling it towards the camera basically, so I could be over here and I could get it to pull towards me. And then you've got the X, Y and Z axis, which are quite useful as well. You've got a maximum displacement of 1 at the moment. I'm going to increase that because the displacement we were getting before wasn't very huge. And there's a couple of things just down in stroke that you're probably likely to use. Display, you can change what the brush looks like for you in the scene here. The attribute maps is probably something you probably won't use, but it's there if you need it. Stylus pressure, if you've got a stylus like I have, you could switch on the stylus pressure to indicate opacity or radius, or both. There you go. So also stroke, this is actually quite useful if you're doing a face or something where it needs to be mirrored. You can switch on reflection, you can tell it which axis you want to reflect around, or you can do it to screen projection there. So not something I'm going to do right now because I'm doing a landscape and I don't need it to be mirrored or reflected. So let's just have a quick look at this. Let's pull up some mountains first of all. So over here, if I go over the same vertex a number of times, let's just put that, you can see it's on view at the moment. Look what it's done, it's pulled it towards the camera. If I go back to normal, let's just pull that up a little bit. That's okay, I'm going to keep that. So I can keep pulling that up, see what that looks like. So I've got a hill over here, let's have another one over here, another blobby hill. I don't really want to see the horizon line too much, so I'm going to put kind of a horseshoe shape of hills going on. Let's have an area which is quite low, and I'll use B and reduce that size, and we'll put a bit of a valley going through here, maybe just like this little river kind of valley thing going through, and you can see that that's kind of deforming this, and you know, it's quite a deep gully, but it's not very nice. Let's go to the smooth tool, reduce that down, and I just press like that's actually it's taking too much, so let's take that down, let's take the opacity out a little bit. That's a bit better. So I don't want to take out all of the deformation I've done, but I do want to smooth it down a little bit, make it a little bit nice, more like the rolling hills rather than sharp jagged mountains. And let's just have a look at that. So this area just over here is a little bit too flat. That's kind of where I want to put the geometry that I've made in a different scene in. Let's just press, with it selected, let's just press 3 and see what it looks like smoothed out. So actually that's pretty good actually. I'm going to leave it like that. You certainly don't need to see me modelling anymore to get the idea of how to use this brush. So let's stay inside this dome for a second, and let's switch on the dome and zoom in. There we go. So my camera is now inside the dome, and I can start to see it now. In a previous tutorial I did show backface culling, so let's just have a quick look at how that is useful here. So I think if I go to normals and reverse, Control Z, because I shouldn't have that face, that plane selected. Normals, reverse, and then display polygons, backface culling. Okay, excellent. Now that is actually pretty decent because that's exactly what I want to see, because that means that I can have my camera slightly further out, and yet I can still see what's going on in my scene.